Hi, everyone, and welcome to Module 3. So this week, our focus is really going to be on giving you more skills in terms of identifying high-quality published studies and research that you can use to write your own literature review. So primarily, we're going to build on what you talked about and thought about last week in terms of the key terms and sort of the basis of your topic. And really, though, we're going to focus on using search strategies to locate those literature and choosing relevant documents that are high quality. Again, so we'll get to more in future modules around how to sort of summarize those articles, take notes on them, and write about them. But right now, this week, really sort of we want you to be thinking about and familiarizing yourself with a process to be collecting good quality articles themselves. So in terms of the content of this week's module, as usual, we have a combination of readings, media, and assignments for you. And as with previous weeks, I'm going to recommend sort of bouncing around between the readings and the videos based on sort of some of the topics that both have. So what I'll recommend is first starting by reading chapter 4. So as you'll recall, you already read part of this chapter for the first week, so you can just skim through those pages. But really, this chapter is kind of a grounding of how to start seeking out and searching for articles, and then also what you should be thinking about as you're sort of evaluating whether or not those articles that your search produces will be relevant to your own literature review. So again, I suggest starting with this, reading this chapter, then popping over to this media page and watching this first video, again by Dr. Erin Rotherham Fuller, which kind of supplements and gives you a conceptual introduction to starting the process for actually getting into different journals and through library platforms and databases and really trying to find articles. So Erin, advocates for starting with basically an outline of your keywords and the main subtopics you want to collect information about. And she'll talk more about the process of when she finds articles that she thinks are good, how she organizes them on her computer. Like Erin, I use the same process she's going to explain. There are, though, and I'll point that out, a number of different citation management softwares that you could use. Dennis, our co-instructor for this course, uses those, and he's going to create a demo video for you about that. You can also look at ASU's library guide on citation management tools that's linked to here under this search tools and resources tab, or whatever. But the point is, there are lots of different ways you can go about organizing your the articles you find on your own computer. And Erin's going to cover that, a suggested approach, the same one I use, when she in this video. And then again, Dennis will create a supplemental one as well. So after you watch that video, then I'll recommend watching Erin's second video here, sort of shifting to, okay, fine, you locate some articles, you think they look good, but how do you know whether or not sort of they're high quality? And so that's what this presentation here, this short video, is about: evaluating journals, source quality. And then there's also a really nice summary, and you'll see it in the reading, about different types of sources you'll run across in table 4.2, which is on page 133. In addition to what the book talks about and what Erin presents about journal quality, there's an article here that you could read about this idea of predatory journals. So shockingly, journals can be a big business, a big revenue generating business for shady companies, not just academic publishers. And because of the pressure that professors globally now are under to publish our research, and oftentimes it gets rejected from high quality journals. So there's this whole market of journals that are kind of just shady and will publish anything, particularly if authors pay them for that. I'll show you an example of one, so you can read about that a little bit more in the article. And it's kind of difficult, as Erin in the article talk about sometimes, to figure out whether or not something's predatory. But for myself as an academic, one thing that's a huge red flag, and I'll show you right here, I get emails a lot from random journals that say, hey, we would love to publish your research. So I got this article from this journal called the US-China Education Review, which publishes articles not just about US and China. It looks like I looked at sort of their table of contents here, and it looked a little shady. Not that I'm looking to publish anything right now, but that's a red flag if you get emails sort of soliciting publications or that you should submit something. And then you can, if you're not sure about whether or not a journal is high quality. So as we mentioned previously in different presentations, there is actually a directory that sort of organizes journals that are out there and also identifies predatory journals. It's called Cabell's Directory of Publishing. So if you click on that, we can look here and see if that US-China Education Review is listed here in Cabell's. And that would, if it's not, that means it's not a good quality journal to cite. And as you can see here, no, it's not listed there. Unfortunately, ASU Library doesn't pay for the actual list of predatory journals, which is annoying, but you can just go into Cabell's if you think something might be suspect and double check on that. So that's a note about source quality. One other thing, and you'll see in the email that I'll send you for this week's module that I want to note is, what about trade publications? So as you may know, the Chronicle of Higher Education, Inside Higher Education, they publish a number of really great articles actually about higher ed. And I'll note that as an ASU student, and you'll see in my email, you have free access to full text articles from the Chronicle, as well as Times Higher Education, The Economist, the New York Times, and the Wall Street Journal. So I'm going to include in my email to you all about Module 3, how to get access to your free subscriptions to those publications. But those are all trade publications, right? And so usually, so you're not going to want to cite those. Those are not peer reviewed. You're not going to want to cite them in your literature review itself. But I will say I often use mainstream trade publications to get current sort of statistics, right? Because oftentimes good quality peer-reviewed articles take like a couple of years to get published. And so statistics sometimes can be dated. The Chronicle, as well as just the government's, the education department website often has good statistics. Like for instance, what if you wanted to, in your introduction to your study, talk about the completion rate for Black community college students or something like that. That type of information, it's okay to use if it's not from a peer-reviewed source. You don't want to, of course, cite some random guy's blog, but if you use the Chronicle, the New York Times, sort of well-respected mainstream sources for that type of information, like descriptive statistics, using sort of that to contextualize maybe an anecdote to kind of underscore the problem of practice you're focusing on, that's fine. But in your literature review itself, you should not be citing trade publications for the vast majority of what you're looking at. And if you have questions about when and where to cite things like the Chronicle or Inside Higher Ed, please let me or Dennis or whoever your faculty member is that you're working with know, and we can help sort of clarify. All right, so that's around kind of the main topics of the first two topics around sort of thinking about how you can locate articles, as well as evaluating the quality of the journals that are publishing them. Then kind of we have the final sort of information that we sort of have for you this week is kind of this last presentation here, which I suggest you reading or watching, I'm sorry, at the very end. It's kind of about the process of starting you to think about the actual writing process, which we're going to cover in future modules as well. But we keep this information here to kind of foreshadow for you how to start thinking about the articles you read in terms of where you're going to and how you're going to begin actually writing. But again, we're going to talk about that far more in future weeks. So that's just kind of a precursor, a foreshadowing of what we're going to discuss going forward. But this week, really, so your assignment too, finally, is going to be getting out there. Just get out there, get into some library databases. You can use the ASU ones, you can use the Long Beach City College ones, you can use your local library, whatever. But really what we want you to do this week, don't really be worrying yet about how to write or how to take notes or anything like that. What we want you really to focus on is, okay, getting familiar with these library databases, how to find articles on topics you're interested in, and then thinking about, okay, how can I maybe start managing what I'm finding and organizing those articles themselves on my computer. Not, again, yet thinking about how to write about them or organizing them in writing, but more of just physically, okay, how should I download them? How should I kind of keep track of them all on my computer or my cloud or whatever? So hopefully this gives you a good overview of what you need to do. And that's really what your assignment is going to be about as well. As with last week's assignment, you don't need to post comments or reactions to your colleagues, what they post their assignment, but feel free to engage with one another if you want. So that's that. And please, as usual, let myself and Dennis know if you have any questions or want further information about any of these topics. Great, and have a wonderful week.